Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things Bharat with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And welcome to the part 2 of Hinduism for beginners based on the Ranveer show episode. It's been really great. Part 1. It's shown me Hinduism, or the way he talked about it, from a completely different perspective, or they clarified certain things in my head. So I'm very curious to continue to the part 2. But before we do,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
I say, let's continue from where we left off last time.
The message I keep trying to put out through this podcast was started from a place of a lot of love. Every single episode intends on packing healing and then sending it out to the world.
Aww.
So there's a lot of good intention, which is why I think this room feels happy and nice. But there's a part of me that's like really, I'd say it's like fallen out of love with not just podcasting, not just my career or materialism, but with life. I don't know why. And I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think I'm getting deeply detached. I've not felt this detached in my life ever. I've just submitted to God now. And I'm focusing a lot on my practice. That's it. Then letting God act through me. My only prayer to God often at night is, do your work in this world through me. That's it.
It's nice.
But this sense of detachment is also causing some pain on the inside. I don't even know why.
It has to. Because for any change to happen, any change, we have to let go of something. And it is always painful. Even if it's something that is not good for us, still to let it go for our mind, it is painful. Sometimes you see old people that have lived in a house for say 50 years, and now the place it's a dump. It's leaking. There's so many problems, but they don't want to move. You tell them maybe your parents or someone will tell their parents that, come, I got a nice other place for you, or at least that till we fix this up. But they don't want to, because that's what they know. So like you said, sometimes we go through phases in life where we may.
I'm just going to quickly pause here. You know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you are aware of Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. They're married, and Mila is actually, she's like a Russian immigrant. She has Russian parents. And then she says that when, they got married and they wanted to help her parents to buy them a new house, and the parents straight up refused. They were like, they want nothing from them, nothing. And then I think at one point she's basically somehow forced or tricked them into at least remodeling. They paid for the remodel of the existing home, but that's a prime example. It was funny because then in that video, her mom was also talking about it. It was some time ago that I watched it, but it just reminded me of that. Yeah, some people are like, no, even you have, a big bum celebrities, and parents will simply not allow the kids to buy a new house, to move somewhere else. They're just like, no, this is our house. This is what we built together. Yeah, funny, no?
Accumulate habits that are not good for us, or people around us that are not good for us, or it could be anything, or even just mental conditioning that's not good for us.
Mental conditioning that's not good for us.
But because we know it, to let go will be painful. Some people can, it sounds very strange, but you can get used to and even start liking being depressed, or being angry, or being so frustrated.
Enjoying the wounds, not letting.
Yeah, that's actually a very a concept in, let's say, for example, when I do my coaching, that actually is a real thing. And because what we call it in coaching is a payoff. So when you do something that's negative, you're going to get a payoff. And the payoff is in a way where you might be not, it's usually something that you might be not really aware of, or it's maybe subconscious. In a way, let's say if you do drugs, in a way it's benefiting, if you're telling yourself a story, it's somehow benefiting, because then you can, let's say, I'm taking drugs and the payoff is, well, I'm not good enough, or, it somehow has a deeper story and deeper meaning. And it gives you then a path to repeat it again, because, well, I'll never be good enough for my parents. I'll be taking drug, and, then you'll be faced with a situation. It will repeat. I'm trying to simplify that now, but what he's saying is actually really is like in the field of psychology, and I'm sure therapies work with that aspect as well, because I do that with my coaching, and yeah, it's called in my world payoff, and it's real.
The wounds heal.
Yeah, it's a kind of enjoying. It's not real joy. So what you're saying makes total sense. And if you like one of the most beautiful scriptures I have read multiple times, which is the Yoga Vasishta, there it starts with Lord Rama coming to this point where he got these realizations where he said, okay, as a prince, he's experienced so many things. This is before he got married and all of that. But then he comes to a point where he becomes so dejected because it's like, what is the point? All of this, it's temporary. Even these pleasures are temporary. Then I'm back to square one. So this is not going anywhere. So it is that point where you start seeing the impermanence or the futility of what you know as the pleasures or the goals that you're supposed to strive for and all of that. But you've not yet come to the point where you can fully consciously experience that joy and fullness of consciousness itself, of the self. And then Vasishta, the guru of the family, he comes and he starts giving him the knowledge of the self. So if you haven't studied it, it's something that you must read. I can recommend a good, very beautiful translation. But it's so beautiful to see how step by step he takes him to the point that, okay, what is the nature of the mind? What is the nature of the self? How are they different? And then this whole world, how to make sense of this duality, because it's relative. It's not absolute, but at the same time, we are experiencing it. So how do you bridge this supposed gap or apparent gap between duality and non-duality?
So I love what he's saying here, because he's basically describing in a way psychotherapy and coaching, and like with a spiritual twist. So yeah, you guys are saying you don't really believe in psychology, but that's kind of what he's describing here. So maybe you just think about it in a different way. That's what I'm trying to say.
Duality and non-duality. What is the duality in the first place?
Well, everything here, what you see, if you feel that I am separate from this, or there is not just me, that is duality. That means there's two or more than two.
You and something else.
And non-duality is that it is in the end, it's all one. So Adi Shankaracharya, the Advaita Vedanta, Advaita means the non-duality. So where he said that Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara, which means that this whole world that we see appears, but is not really. And what is really permanent, what is truth is Brahman. It's one consciousness, one universal consciousness. And the Jiva, the individual consciousness, the self, and the universal consciousness are actually not separate. So he explains it very beautifully, saying that, say you go out at night and you go down a path and then you think there's a snake. Now you get scared because what if the snake bites you? So you stop. You have a small lamp with you. You think, okay, let me wait for the snake to leave first. But then your heart is beating and you're very scared and what will happen? Will I be okay? And then suddenly from behind someone else comes and say your sister comes with a bigger lantern. And the moment she comes closer, because the light is more, you realize, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope. So there was a rope lying there. Someone would have left it, but it looked like a snake because the light was less. The moment you see it's a rope, that fear is gone, everything is fine. Thank God, So he says this world, this whole, whatever we experience, including your body and your mind and your limited identity, it's like that snake. You think it's there, but it's not really there. But then you cannot say that, oh, there was nothing there. No, there was a rope that made you think it was a snake. The same way he says, it's not that there is nothing. No, there is consciousness. But we experience it as being different in so many ways. And this is a topic for lifetimes, you can say, because all the great masters and saints have spoken about it in different ways. But the more you start experiencing that, yes, on one level, really, this is all, it's all one. Whether it is all me or whether it's all him or it's all the Shakti or whatever. No? Different people approach it in different ways, how you connect. But in the end, that it is one thing. And then the beauty is, the more that comes in, then you start also being able to appreciate everything as a form of that. Like I was in Rishikesh a few days back. I had brought one group from Europe and there was a break, few hours. I let them, whatever, someone wants to go shopping or take a dip in the Ganga, whatever you want to do. So I had a little time for myself and I was just walking and there was a moment where suddenly, I wasn't thinking about it, but that thought came up again. That it's so amazing how all of this is a manifestation of that one divinity. This is Sarvam Shivamayam Jagat. It's all Shiva. And the moment that came, and then I was looking around and you see maybe some trash is lying there on the road, but that's also Shiva. You see one cow is coming, that is also Shiva in a different form. You see a guy selling something, the same thing. And then even that trash, you're able to appreciate. And it's amazing how that one thing is manifesting in such a diversity. And that's beautiful.
I want to say a few things. Firstly, I want to say that this is not a conversation for everyone. There's lots of people who've tuned out. And only for the ones meant to hear this will the information truly sink into the mind. I remember once I was telling a friend of mine to read Autobiography of a Yogi, and she was a very fiery person, doing well in her career and very headstrong. And I felt like she had a spiritual bent of mind. So I gave her the book. She started reading it, and then she put it down after a few chapters. So I asked her, why'd you put it down? And she said that because in that book, the writers constantly refer to God as a he. Okay. How does he know that God is a he? And I accepted that feedback. I was like, okay, that's her conditioning. That didn't even strike me when I was reading the book. I was just looking at God as a genderless being, which you refer to as God. I never thought about why.
To me, that just sounds like so American. Forgive me if it's me saying that, but them and the whole gender agenda and the strong feminism that's coming out of that, it's somehow, it's hard to, I guess, judge people on their intentions. But sometimes these things are taken a bit too far. Like, in my head, so what? Like, everyone has a different point of reference, and especially when it comes to spiritual things, it's strange to even think of it that way in my head. But so be it.
I call it he, or she calls it she, etc. Eventually in life, I realized that it's all our mental conditioning that stops us from allowing the depths of what's being said to enter your mind, which is why they say that when you read scriptures at different ages, different aspects of those scriptures will enter your head. Because as you age, you're letting go of your mental conditioning in many ways, which is why
hopefully
that's how it should be.
Yes,
for your one's own pace.
But it's not even just the spiritual knowledge entering you. If you really look at it, like, I have a great love and passion for mantras from a very young age. But one of the most, I would say, beautiful things that mantras can do for you. Like, I know you also love mantras, and you've spoken about, you had different people, wonderful people come and share about mantras in the podcast, that it says in the scriptures, manana trayate iti mantra. The mantras are those sounds or vibrations that by repeating them, they can take you beyond the mind, they can transform your mind. But why is it? Because this conditioning, when we talk about karma, it's a very abstract things for people maybe, but these are the seed impressions. But then you say, okay, so from past lives or whatever, you've taken some of this conditioning with you. But then how does that affect your life? You go to an astrologer, they'll say, oh, probably this is happening, or that was happening, or this will happen. But how is that? It doesn't, it's very strange. How can these impressions in your consciousness affect your life like that? Because that conditioning that we carry, in the end, that is the root cause for the thoughts coming up, the qualities of the thoughts coming up. So say you're a very intuitive person, you're extremely smart, and you're very blessed that out of 10 choices, you will always make the best choice. Let's say you're like that. Now, I give you 10 options. You will choose the best one. But if all 10 are different types of poison, you will choose the best one, but you still end up with poison. And if someone is a total, well, forgive my language, but an idiot, like he's really not smart, he's very unlucky, he will always choose the worst option. But if I give him 10 different types of cake, nice pastry, he will take the worst one, but it's still nice pastry. So if you look at your life, anybody, we act on our thoughts. You get a thought, and that is why you do an action. Now, when you become more aware, of course, spiritual practices really help with that. Your awareness increases. You start having a choice that, okay, do I want to act on this thought or not? Some people are on autopilot. Whatever thought comes, they will do it. Then you become more aware. Then you say, okay, is this a good thought or not? Is this something that I want? Like right now, I feel like slapping this guy, but I'm not going to do it because either I lose my job or it's not good or whatever. I feel like eating 10 pizzas, but I know it's not good. Let me not do it. I may want to stay up all night binge watching this thing on Netflix, but I know I have to work tomorrow. I have an important presentation. So maybe only till 2:00, So you have a choice whether you do it or not, but you still only have a choice between the thoughts that are coming up, So somewhere there is something that has prompted you to say, okay, I want to become an engineer, or I want to do a podcast, or I want to do this or that. And where are those thoughts coming from? You cannot change a thought before it comes. So if you really want to gain more freedom, if you want to have better options, then maybe the really only and best way is to change the quality of your thoughts. And that is where mantras come in, because mantras can change the quality of your thoughts. It can change your conditioning. And that is how, say, someone may have been doing a mantra for some time. So suddenly they start getting different type of thoughts, different quality thoughts. So your options have improved. So like I said, even if you have 10 options and you choose the worst one, if they're all good, that'll take you in a good direction in life.
Let me have a go at this for people.
Okay, I'm going to go have a go at this first. So there is actually more to it than just a thought equals action. It is, there is an inner step, and I've been recently doing like a personal development program, which is like the missing piece, and it's the internal images that you have when you have a thought. like, I don't know, my teacher or my boss, looked wrongly at me, and then you imagine something, and that is like you hear, see in your head something, and that causes a feeling inside of you, and that only that feeling makes you act. Now, I'm giving you knowledge that I've been paying for as well, but what he's also talking about is interesting, that you can just do it by mantras. In coaching, you as a coach for myself, I would take people through, like it's really analysis of thoughts. Like, it's simplified in the sense that it's like thoughts to action, but on the deeper level, there is actually more happening within the body, and even coaching investigates those like feelings and emotions, and then helps to the person to expedite that. So it's interesting. I would love to know how that happens actually with mantra. With for example, coaching, there is a process to it that you take your client. So interesting. If a mantra just suffices, I don't know. I would be a bit too skeptical about that, but I haven't experienced it, so I can't speak to it. I just know what works, which is, for me, when I coach my clients, that's what works.
People who want to understand this with a little more depth. Okay, I'm trying to talk to my podcasting audience. I have a friend of mine, a mentor. He's also created a lot of series on Level Supermind. His name's Om Damatkar, and I've learned a tremendous amount from him. One of the earliest things he told me was that the process of meditation creates a larger distance between thought and perception. So thought is the sentence that comes up. Oh, I want to go to sleep. Oh, I want to hit this guy. Oh, I should be doing this in life. You don't know where it's coming from. Perception is like another person inside your head who's looking at those thoughts and then acting upon them, or judging them and figuring out what to do. So when you're a child or when you're an animal, there's no distance between the thoughts and the perception. You get a thought, you act upon it.
Yes.
Tiger sees prey, tiger jumps. A child sees a toy, child goes towards the toy. And then as you grow older, usually there's a little distance created where you're able to see your own thoughts.
Yeah.
And then as you become more street smart, probably that distance increases. When you meditate, the distance increases tremendously.
True.
When you get into practices, it increases even more. But what I've never thought about until this conversation is about the origin points of those thoughts. They're coming out of what in my head I visualized as some dark pit.
True.
Coming out of somewhere. And then that person in my head, which I call perception, looks at those thoughts.
Exactly.
So you're saying that when you actually get into deeper practices, that dark pit that those thoughts are coming out of actually becomes more fertile to throw up more interesting things at you.
Yeah, exactly. And it will help you burn the stuff that's not good for you. Like if we talk about spiritual practices, you're being able to burn some of the mantras even before they sprout, the seeds before they sprout. And that is how these practices are so invaluable, I would say. And it's very interesting. I've seen people sometimes, they say they come with a problem, that they're having a health problem. They've been to so many doctors, and then, they're just not able to figure out what's wrong with them. And they tried so many things. And then they went to a good astrologer, Jyotishi, and they found out, okay, this is some part of your karma, you're facing, but there is a remedy. There is a mantra you can chant. Do this mantra, it will help you. Now, this person, he was not into spiritual stuff at all, but he was like, I've tried everything. I may as well give it a shot. So it's not like he was sitting there with full devotion, but he did it every day. Now, after 1 or 2 months, this friend of mine, the astrologer, he called up this person and he asked him, like, how are you now? He said, actually, I'm doing great. He said, oh, tell me what happened. He said, oh, it's not because of the mantra, but you know what happened? After 2 weeks, after I spoke to you, a friend of mine said that he knows a good doctor, and I thought, okay, I may as well go and see him. And I met this person, and he just saw me, and he analyzed the reports, and then he figured out exactly what was wrong. And it was a very simple thing. He gave me some, what do you call it? Some food supplements and things like that, some vitamins, and my problem is gone now. Now, what this person did not realize is that, if we say, okay, there are certain mantra you can do as a remedy, that doesn't mean you just do the mantra and your problem gets sorted. What it does is that mantra will take away those karmas when done in the right way. And when that karmic block is gone, life will start flowing. So the thing is, for 2 years, he was meeting different doctors. Now, why suddenly he came across this guy, and that doctor had the right thought at that moment where he saw this is your problem, and he gave him medicine. So that is why it's difficult for people to imagine, but this conditioning, not just in us, but even in the world around us, when you're able to change, then suddenly it's like, you've done so many job interviews and suddenly you end up in the right place. Or suddenly people will feel you are the right person. So on a subtle level, there's this whole thing going on. And the spiritual practices, like mantras, which are very specific, of course, they have an impact on that level. Otherwise, you can do all the effort you do, but you may be unlucky. You may end up in the right place, but you're just too late. They just hired another guy for the position. And that is why even if you see, like in India, of course, still there is this practice, still many people do, of namakarana. Like you choose a name for the child, not just because you like it or because it was your grandmother's name, but they take the chart or they go to a pandit or an astrologer, and then they will usually suggest, okay, you start a name with this sound. That is a common practice. Why? Because our name is like the first mantra diksha. It's the first mantra you receive, because this is the thing that you keep thinking about. You keep telling people keep calling you that. So if that is chosen wisely, that can be tremendously beneficial, because the right mantra, the right name, can make sure that you're not just healthy, but you are successful in society. People respect you. Your body is strong. And in ancient times, not even in India, even in other parts of the world as well, in many cultures, there was this practice that if a child, when they're very young, keeps getting sick, they have a lot of health problems, they would start questioning that maybe they were not given the right name. And sometimes they will change the name and you will see a drastic improvement. But the thing is, like with many of these practices now, like what you're also doing with the podcast, is how do you make people aware of the quality stuff? Because meditation also, every street corner now you can learn something, doesn't mean it's really meditation. So with this namakarana, what I've seen is that usually what they do, they take the birth star, like your Janma Nakshatra. And based on that, there are some letters. They say, okay, start your name with Va, Vi, Vu, or something like that. That's what most people do. Because people ask me also, can you help me with a name? Or a pandit suggested this, is it good? The thing is, if we look at those in ancient times also that had access to the top-notch astrologers, let's say we take Lord Rama, Sri Ram. Now, his name was given by the family guru, Vasishta himself, Brahma Rishi, grandfather of Parashara, one of the greatest Jyotishis. Now, Lord Rama's nakshatra was either Pusha or Punarvasu, and based on that, there are some letters that come. It's like Ko, Ke, and then Ha, He, Hu, like there's a bunch of them. Ra is not there. So that means they followed something different. They didn't follow this principle. And he had so much knowledge of Jyotish and all of this knowledge. If we look at Sri Krishna, his name was given by Gargamuni, again a great rishi. Now his nakshatra was Rohini. Now there also the options are Va, Vi, Vu, O. It's not R or Kr. So again, he followed something different. Jawaharlal Nehru, for example, his name was given by the Raj Jyotishi of Khetri that plays there. So again, very knowledgeable person. For him also a different thing was followed. So then if you go deeper into this, I've also started learning, it's very interesting. But then you see that they look at many other things. So if you just take that one letter based on the star, it means it will make your body strong and you'll have enough food to eat if you do it right. Doesn't mean you won't have health problems. Just means you'll survive. Doesn't mean you'll have a good place in society. Doesn't mean you'll be happy necessarily. Doesn't mean you'll spiritually advance. They say if your name can be one of the names of your Ishtadevata, then nothing like it, because that is the form of God or that universal consciousness that will take you towards mukti, towards liberation. It will take you out of bondage. So then whatever you do in life, at least you will not be going further into bondage. You'll be more free. So these are things that when you think about it, it's amazing. So that mantra, your name, if it is chosen correctly, that itself can be such a blessing. And in this, I'll not even say country, this subcontinent, this Bharat, they had this kind of knowledge with these sanskaras where they say, okay, at every important intersection of your life, where there is a transformation, whether it's you getting a name, the first time you're eating the food, Annaprashan they call it, when you get married or when you start your education, if it's done in the right way, they say it increases the sadhak tattva, it will help you to progress further, it will support your journey, and it will remove the badak tattva, it will remove the obstacles. And the goal was self-realization, freedom, full blossoming of the potential of human existence, of our consciousness. So when you consciously do those things, it makes all the difference. And that is also why I feel it's so beautiful that this knowledge is in many ways becoming a little more well-known now. There are so many people who want to know about it, because it's not just for India. The whole world needs these things if people want to be happy, healthy, successful, and get along.
Swamiji, this was the end of the podcast. Thank you. Great talking to you. I really needed to meet you today and hear what you had to say, because I was feeling very anxious, afraid. I've been thinking about, not wishing for it. Again, I don't know where the thoughts are coming from, but I've been thinking about an earlier peaceful death a lot. And I've been wondering why I've been thinking about an earlier peaceful death. Because in my head at one point, I thought I'd live till the age of 100 at least. And now I've started to visualize myself passing away at 37 or 38. But sometimes when I meet people like yourself, I understand that visualization to probably be a passing away of a sense of ego and a sense of self, and maybe transformation rather than just death, which is always the motive behind any of these episodes. We're trying to spread the message called transformation. So thank you, Swamiji. Thank you for collaborating with us on Level Supermind. Like, honor to be professionally collaborating with you as well. It's a lot of power that we put in each of those guided meditations. So the fact that you put your own prana into that means a lot to me. that we've been able to kind of collaborate on some front. I hope to speak to you again on the show, and I hope that you had a fun time speaking to me.
Definitely. And I wish you all the very best with this beautiful initiative. And yeah, it was sometimes deeper than I had anticipated in a good way. And I hope it may help many people to explore a little further, what our true potential is.
Yeah. They say that if you take one step towards God or evolution, then God or evolution takes 10 steps towards you.
Definitely.
So it's just about moving in that direction of practice.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Swami.
Namaste.
Have you guys? I thoroughly enjoyed this. I don't think that this was necessarily Hinduism for beginners. I feel like that they were discussing a bit more advanced concepts. But a bit shocked about that. And we're thinking he's going to pass away so early. No, and it just makes me feel like, oh, this guy is so clever for his age. It's incredible what he's achieved and knowledge that he has, and kudos to him. Message is like, don't think these thoughts, because what we think about we bring about. So just divert your thoughts to something else. It's very what I out of this part I really enjoy listening about the names. Now I want you to tell me, like, if you do you go to your parents go to astrologers and pick the names for you, and maybe have you changed the names? Like, what was the impact of the name for you? That would be pretty fascinating, because he's saying that vibrations are kind of real and it has an impact. I would just be curious, like any of you, all of you, your experience with the names, the renaming, or if you feel like it has an impact. I would be super curious. I never thought of it before about like the vibration of the name. I only knew that I personally don't like my name, but it is better than, like, I had a couple of versions from my parents, and then my mom wanted to call me Erica, and to all Ericas, I do apologize, but I had a very, very, I don't know, I cannot stand that name. For other people, so be it. But for me, I almost felt offended. So I was just so happy that my dad actually wanted me to be named my name. But it's truly fascinating. And I think when we go back to the earlier part of the podcast and the quality of thoughts they were saying, like, then that's why I find meditation so important. Because I think the way you change is if you become aware of what you're doing, of your actions. And then what he was saying, that certain maybe thoughts don't even occur to you. But I think that when you have the practice, and when you are, then the practice causes you to be self-aware, then you perhaps, as he said, you will not take those 10 pizzas. But I do think it's actually quite of a process, and I think it differs, I would presume, from a person to person, but it's super important to, I think the self-awareness is the key to unleashing your true power and true potential. And again, like, you can be aware through meditation, through having therapists, through having a coach. But I think out of all, you have to really work hard on yourself. And sometimes when I really practice that, it's hard. It really is hard to, live your life, and to also be really observing yourself, how you act, what you think. But nonetheless, I think it's very, very fruitful for you if you're then able to self-analyze. I guess this is why people then have coaches and therapists, because it's really hard. Like, whenever I'm doing all that work on myself, it's hard. Like, that is how I see it. I don't want to now make it even harder for me by speaking into existence, but I find it uncomfortable. I find it's easier for me to, let's say, have a coach. They work these things with me. When I do it by myself, I tend to even put things off. So that's the power of, let's say, when you have a coach or a therapist, they kind of shorten that learning curve for you, and you can just move with your life much faster. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video with me. If you did enjoy it, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you next one. Until then, please do take care. I'm sending lots of peace and love. Bye-bye.